Are you always mixing muddy colors and can't figure out why? The secret to great color combinations is understanding the basics of warm, cool, and complementary colors. As mentioned in the last lesson, the colors on the color wheel can be divided into two groups: warm colors and cool colors. Warm and cool colors have different effects on the way that we perceive depth. For instance, cool colors appear to push back, while warm colors appear to come forward. You can use this effect on your portrait paintings when you're trying to push parts of the face or facial features backward or forward. What happens when you mix colors with the same temperatures, and what happens when you mix opposite color temperatures? When warm and cool colors are mixed together, they create various tones that are either complementary or contrasting. Mixing two colors of the same temperature will result in a harmonious color palette, while mixing colors of different temperatures will result in a more contrasting color palette. Let's give the example of complementary colors to see how this works. Complementary colors are those that are directly across from each other on the color wheel, such as blue and orange, yellow and purple, or red and green. When these colors are laid next to each other, they create a vibrant and attention-grabbing effect. Yet when complementary colors are mixed together in paint, they will actually create a more muted and even sometimes muddy tone. But why? So let's break this down. If you want to create a great mud color, you would mix the three primary colors together. Okay, so now let's look at our complementary colors of orange and blue, these both being opposite on the color wheel. Well, orange is essentially red and yellow mixed together. So if you mix this with blue, you are going to be essentially mixing your three primary colors, which will give you a muddy color. Actually, something important to note is that complementary colors make great shadow colors and create more realism in portrait paintings than just darkening a color with black. So for instance, if you wanted to create a realistic shadow underneath a tree with green grass, you can mix a little bit of red into your green paint. This is also true when we are layering colors on top of each other, similar to what we're doing in our layered painting process. So let me give you this example in a colored pencil drawing that I made. I started by drawing what would be our version of an underpainting in black, white, and gray. Then the next layer I created was green, and this would be similar to us adding a layer of glaze to our portrait painting. Since I knew that the final version of the apple was going to be red, I created a layer on top of the underpainting, but also underneath the layer of red, which were just various color temperatures of the color green. So I added dark blue green in the shadows, and I added some warm, lighter yellow greens near the highlights. And then I also left some areas blank where there was no green at all that would help out later when I added the red on top. Okay, so then after I was done adding all of my green, I finished the drawing with one more layer on top, and this would be various temperatures of red. So I added some warm orangey reds near the highlights and then let them bleed a little bit into the shadows, and then used a dark violet red for the shadow areas. By using various colors and temperatures, I was actually able to create more depth and realism in this colored pencil drawing, and we can use the same effect in the color glazes step of our acrylic and oil painted portraits. One important thing to note that you may not know is that paint colors are often created with undertone colors. So what are undertones? Undertones in paint colors can be either warm or cool, even if the dominant color suggests otherwise. For example, there are cooler and warmer red pigments available for purchase. It is the undertone of this specific red color that will ultimately dictate whether it provides a warm or cool effect. In portrait number 5, you're going to notice that I used two different red hues. One of the red hues provides me with the warmth, while the other red hue provides me with more of the cooler undertones to help me push and pull and add an additional layer of realism to my portraits. If you keep mixing muddy colors and you just cannot figure out why, like for example, perhaps you're trying to make purple by mixing red and blue together, and it's not the purple that you are expecting. It's most likely because you're mixing undertones that are complementary from each other, similar to mixing complementary colors, like I mentioned earlier. And you can avoid this by understanding what the undertones of each color that you're using are. This is very important to consider when choosing colors for a portrait painting. I personally believe that by starting with a monochromatic painting first, you are able to experiment with more color in the long run because you can play with all the magical effects that color combinations can provide. And by using thin, transparent layers of glaze with your color, you can layer all these concepts and ideas on top of each other in varying degrees, and you're going to get this very unique color combination outcome. So remember, when it comes to warm and cool colors, complementary colors mixed together can actually create a more muted or muddy looking tone. And be sure sure to take into account the undertones of your paint colors when looking for that perfect hue. Ultimately though, in order to achieve realism, it is key to really just mix all three primary colors together, red, yellow, and blue, but in different proportions. If you can get a good understanding of this principle, then your portrait paintings will take on a whole new level of realism. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson. Take care.